So I've been wanting to go on the White River for, it's like forever. When I was younger and just getting into canoeing, the White River was pretty darn intimidating with all the big waterfalls, the going across on Lake Superior, the remoteness and all that. It was a big kid's river, and I wasn't quite a big kid yet, that's for sure. The White River used to be one of those rivers that you heard about all the time. So whether you were looking through old M&R stuff, every canoe book you opened, there was always something about the White River. There was Kevin Callan's top 50 canoe routes of Ontario, and there was the White River. You just had to do it. Finally, I'm ready for the challenge. I practiced, I got everything all set. I knew what I was doing. I'm all set to go on the White River. And it's closed. So, since 2008, I've been waiting, and it still was closed. And then suddenly, in 2018, there was this little tiny video that came onto the internet of these two canoes that supposedly had been clearing portages and setting up campsites all the way along the White River. And they declared the river was ready. In 2020, David Lee, the passionate paddler, and his friend Ben did the whole White River from the source all the way to Lake Superior in an awesome adventure they chronicled on YouTube. Well, that was enough for Jim and me. It was time to finally do the White River then. We began with a late fall trip on the Upper White River in 2021, but the classic route, that was our real goal. This video is about that trip in 2022. The White River is open, and now is the time to get paddling. The trickiest part of the White River trip might be dropping a shuttle car off at Pukaskwa National Park. The parking fees aren't too bad, but if you tell them you'll be staying in the national park overnight on your last day of the trip, you're in for a paperwork beating. Just pay for the car and tell them you'll only be paddling through the park. We did stay one night in the park and just paid at the end of the trip. Paper cuts avoided. Once you get back to the White Lakes Narrows, there's a great spot to park just northwest of the bridge at the public boat launch. White Lake can be tricky to paddle if the wind is against you, but we were pretty lucky on our first day. The islands on the lake have camping spots, but are very well used, and many of them are full of trash.
Call it shack.
Our first night's camp was at the far end of the lake on the southeast side, tucked into a little cove. A perfect spot, about 8 kilometers from the put-in. Jim circled it here on the map in orange. Oop, that's rain too. The wind had picked up a touch in the afternoon, so it was nice to be off of the water. After supper, the wind finally died down, and we had a fire on the beach before hitting the sack early. Day 2 would get us out of the lake and into the White River. You'll notice on our map all the red triangles. These were the campsite locations the different books and maps that Jim and I had researched had. As we traveled down the river, most sites were non-existent. Only the campsites we circled in orange are still to be found along the way. We finally arrived at the old White Lake Dam site. It was removed to build the new dam further down the river. Oh, look at this was the portage too.
Never seen those before. It's funny, those guys.
They're interesting, aren't they? It was a bit rocky, but could still be used as a campsite. right in front of us is the only spot that was probably dry. Everything else is all marshy. Maybe 2 tents and some bug juice. This is an example of one of the old marked campsites. It'd need a touch of pruning. The first new dam is just before the Fearless Rapids. I think this is the Portage. The dam was a beautiful example of modern art. The Portage was pretty good too. If you appreciate well-marked trails, this Portage is for you.
I don't think this is a well-used portage.
No. A plus?
A something. It's not plus. Well, it needs a little bit of work. So there you go. We call this driftwood.
Good name. We would finish off our day with another nice campsite. The takeout was a bit steep and the swimming a little challenging, but it had a nice view of the river. The next dam on the river was located above Angle Rapids. All right, so now we have to figure out where that arrow means.
So the white sign has a big arrow to the left. There's a very poor, if trail at all, and then a bit of a swamp and then a rock face, so that doesn't look like that's good.
Well, we couldn't find the portage that the big arrow had promised, so we started our own trail. Here's a quick view of the dam from above. And the big red arrow, well, it's our big arrow portage sign. Here's the route that Jim and I took. We finally found the end of the portage, then worked our way backwards to discover what the big black arrow had so vehemently tried to inform us. They needed a few more arrows. Well, we finally made it to the beginning of the portage that big black arrow was pointing us towards. It was a bit more than 1 kilometer away. Here, you can see the route in blue. That's the official portage route. The entrance to the lake is right there. Jim was adamant about measuring the route from start to finish. Very nice. Hey Jim, look there.
There's their lovely bench. And a fire pit.
Ooh, fire pit.
Good job.
Very nice.
Camp on the road before I can.
Are we staying here tonight, Jim?
No, I think we'll see if we can find something similar.
What did you GPS this site as, Jim?
This is called the joke site.
Well, somebody should sit on the bench at least. Okay, nobody's ever had a fire in the fire pit. They just put rocks around it. It's not a bad put in though.
Good.
And there's the portage side. Nice picnic table. And one massive cedar tree.
This is a big cedar tree.
After finally completing the portage, we went over to explore the Angle Rapids. We discovered a beautiful sand beach and campsite on River Right. Just think how you'd be feeling at this point if you stayed at that other site in the bush. It was the perfect spot for lunch, and the rapids were just around the corner. It took a fair chunk of the day exploring the dam, figuring out the portage routes, and enjoying the rapids. Only 2 kilometers further downstream, we'd find another awesome campsite just past Baptismal Chute. Fishing was good, swimming even better, and the thunderbogs? Well, it was high up on a ridge commanding a sweeping view of one's kingdom while perched upon the throne.
Just an empty box.
Day 4 would prove to be our longest and toughest day of the trip. Our first challenge would be the S Rapids. The beginning of the portage was indicated by a cricket wicket.
At the beginning of S Rapids, at the portage, you can take your bag first carry through first, and then if you want to run the first section, you can go in, take the obvious big V, and just hug these 2 little islands. You can only see one here, but there's a second one up there. Hug these islands, and then straight down the wave train and haystacks. Then further down, there'll be
as it curves to the left, there'll be 3 dead logs, and you can get out before the heavy part about 100 meters after that.
But stay over to the
Stay over
right
to the
again.
the whole time.
Yeah.
And there is a takeout in the path up to the normal portage about 1/3 of the way down.
Perfect. The river slowed considerably after S Rapids.
Just seems to get lower and lower in the wet.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
There was a nice campsite at the bottom of S Rapids Portage, but after that, we'd see no real campsites that day until we got to Umbata Falls.
We've launched.
Don't forget the relish, Jim.
Oh, no, I got it.
Oh, good. Well, we finally made it to the takeout at Umbata Falls, but it started to rain, the bugs were ravenous, and we were exhausted. Warning number 1. Warning number 2. Warning number 3. There's red balls across the water. That's a good sign to don't do any further. Warning number 4. And around the corner is warning number 5. So they're pretty adamant, don't go. Maybe we could line it? And there we go, our little home away from home. We do have a few friends with us, but other than that, it might work out okay. View of the river. And thank goodness for the dining tent. This is rainwater bubbles.
It's true. It really is.
The portage around Umbata Falls took most of the day, and we never were able to actually see the falls, but at the end of the portage, we found a really great campsite. It was under a logging bridge at the bottom of the dam, and it was a perfect spot to set up and then go exploring. The Umbata Falls Trail was the old portage trail used before the dam. It was one tough trail, and I'm glad I didn't have to carry the canoe down that path. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Even with the hydro dam, the Umbata Falls did not fail to amaze. It was quite the eye-opener and well worth the bushwhack.
Well, I think I might camp out here. There's 2020.
That morning, as Jim and I were having our coffee under the bridge, we heard above us the clip-clopping sound of horses' hooves. Who would be riding a horse in the middle of nowhere? As we scrambled out to investigate, a bull moose was galloping into the forest. Now that was a morning wake-up. Day 6 was one of the best days of our adventure. We had to navigate around treacherous rapids, saw spectacular waterfalls, and would walk the famous suspension bridge that crosses the Shigami-Windigum Canyon.
All right, so now we are in Pukaskwa.
In this dark night, it's too hard for me to say.
We'll probably stick to the middle, take the top, watch out for the cross, and then maybe cut over to the left. Bring out to the current, and then go to the right. Bounce through the haystacks around the corner.
This point is just too dark to tell. Was the stars guiding me? God shows back. Was the devil set me drifting once more? Will these clouds ever lift and the map again reveal? At this point, it's just too dark to tell. If these green night blues would lighten up, if my nature would shake this wicked spell, if this midnight sky would brighten up, if my ears could hear a voice saying, all will be well, then all is well, all is well.
there's the Portage exit. Be very careful after Hook Falls, as the next waterfall has no rapids or warning or anything before the big plunge.
If these
And it is a big plunge.
would lighten up, if my nature would shake this wicked spell, if this midnight sky would brighten up, if my ears could hear a voice saying, all will be well, then all is well.
Day 7 would be our last day on the river and our crossing Lake Superior to Hattie's Cove. Superior is nothing to fool around with. We carried our dry suits for the whole trip just for today's crossing. Alright, and here's the old remnants of the cabin on the point. And there's Lake Superior. And the end of the White River. We were very lucky that day, as there wasn't a breath of wind and the fog held off so that we could easily navigate. Paddling Lake Superior is always magical. It scares the daylights out of you 1 minute, forces you to wait it out for days on an isolated beach the other, and then sometimes it's simply a pool of glass. And so, our trip down the White River came to a close. It had taken 14 years of waiting, but it was well worth the wait. So what's your excuse? The White River is open and ready. Are you up for the challenge?